Judy, can you tell us a little about yourself?
Well, I grew up in a very small town in eastern Oregon, a place that you've probably never heard about, La Grande, and I grew up in a home that honored family values but didn't know God. And I was the youngest of three girls, and I didn't have a weight problem as a teenager, a young teenager, but I had a food problem. In our home, I remember we would have pancake competitions on Sunday mornings, and I would always win. And food was love, and my parents lived through the Depression. And it was a measure of being a good supporter and a measure of motherhood to provide 3 square meals a day. And I remember that my father would come home for lunch, and we would come home for lunch, and so 3 square meals a day, it was that indeed. And then I went away to, after I finished high school, I went away to college, and I started out in nursing, and then changed my major to dental hygiene, and went to school in Portland, Oregon. And there I met a young man and fell in love, and got pregnant at the age of 19, almost 20. And this definitely was not in my plan. And I panicked, and I made a choice at that time to do what was right in my own eyes, and that was to have an abortion. And it was a decision that was really a selfish decision, and it was a decision that was filled with a lot of shame. And because of my shame, I kept it a secret from my parents. And I tried to keep it a secret from all of my friends, but having morning sickness 7 days a week, I'm sure it was pretty obvious to everyone. And having an abortion 40 years ago was illegal, so I went on a search of knocking on doors to try to find a connection somewhere, someone who would help me. And finally got a connection outside of the country in Mexico, actually in Tijuana. And I didn't speak Spanish, and they didn't speak English, but I was desperate. And it was really the grace of God that I didn't have major physical complications. And God is so good because He knows us even when we don't know Him. And that reminds me of a scripture in Ephesians 4:1 that says, He chose us in Him before the foundation of the world. And because I didn't have major physical problems, I thought that everything was okay. It was in my naivety, I thought it was a done deal. Let's put it behind me and just get on with life. But I just couldn't get on with life. It was just sort of like I was emotionally immobilized. And because I did have a conscience, and I knew that what I had done was wrong. And that reminds me of another scripture in Proverbs that says, there is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, it leads to death. And the choice that I made led to the sudden death of an unborn baby, and to actually the slow death of my own sort of soul and spirit, because that's when the bulimia began, and that's when I went from size 4 to a size 14. And I got mixed up with the wrong crowd, and got into drugs and alcohol and a very fast-lane lifestyle, promiscuity, and I really sunk into a very dark pit of despair. And I remember day after day I'd go out and I'd buy these huge bags of junk food, and I'd come home and I'd pull down the blinds in my little dingy apartment in Southern California, and I'd stuff myself and binge until I was sick, or I'd make myself sick. And this went on year after year until I just couldn't face another day of binging and purging and all the self-loathing that went along with it. And I just came to the place where I was serious about suicide. And again, I remember the very day of sitting on my couch in this same little apartment, and tears were running down my face, and I was ready. I was really ready to follow through with my plan. And I didn't hear anything, and I didn't see anything, but God literally reached down, and He just pulled me out of that pit of despair. And Psalm 40 says it so well. He brought me out of that pit of destruction, out of that miry clay, and He set my feet upon a rock, making my footsteps firm. And God literally stayed my hand. And it was as if He just washed me clean, white as snow. And I just felt like I had a new beginning, a fresh start. And I wish I could say that everything was sort of rosy from that point forward, but I think I'm a slow learner. And that was sort of the first broken life experience. And so I went on a search to sort of find out why I was spared and why I was sort of, what was the purpose of my life and why was I here. God is so wonderful because He says, if we seek, we will find. And I studied everything from astrology to the occult, and from Rolfing to rebirthing, and to transcendental meditation, Western religions, Eastern New Age, you name it, I did it. And I found little kernels of truth, and I guess all of those places, and enough to sort of prop myself up with positive thinking, and sort of pull myself up by the bootstraps. But there, and I guess I looked pretty good on the outside, but I was still believing the lie that I was the master of my own destiny. So in that searching time, I did go back to school. I got my degree in nursing, and I specialized in psychiatry. And I think it was beginning to dawn on me that the answers to the issues of food and eating and weight were more than external solutions like dieting, that it was within. Now, I didn't, of course, know about God at this point. But in 1975, this is when I met my dear friend, Joy Imboden, and she too had come to the same conclusion, and that's where the name Thin Within came from. And Joy had already begun studying the behavior of naturally thin people. And it was amazing to us that naturally thin people never dieted. They could have a piece of apple pie for breakfast and leave half of it on the plate or throw it away. And I belonged to the Clean Plate Club, and it was a sin to throw away food. And we discovered that they were in touch with their body, and they ate only when they were hungry. Well, that was a novel idea because I ate at 9, 12, and 6. And being hungry had nothing to do with the reasons why I ate. I ate because I was frustrated, or alone, or sad, or self-loathing, or depressed, or even celebrating. They also ate, they didn't count calories or weigh and measure the food, and that was like, wow, that's so freeing, so wonderful. It was like guilt-free eating, and there were no forbidden foods, and so it was just a whole new way of looking at life and looking at food and eating, and we discovered that they ate to live rather than live to eat.